So Rachel Langley, Tabby Jones, Carol Zangard.
Yeah,
And
mine's
someone's virtual?
Carol is virtual. And mine's Tabby Jones Wallaber.
Tabby Jones
Wallaber.
Wallaber.
If you remember it, if you don't, it's fine.
Good afternoon, everybody. We have our last expert session. Certainly looking forward to it. Stepping into AAC, I think is the title. We have two of our experts here with us and one virtually. We have Rachel Langley, Tabby Jones Wallaber, and Carol Zangari, I think, is joining us virtually. So thank you so much for being with us. And I think we're going to get the slides up here and get started.
All right. Welcome, Carol. All right. If you didn't hear me when you first walked in, we have materials that we're going to be interacting with during this presentation today. So if you want to move forward, the first 6 tables across and 4 tables back have materials, handouts, etc. So if you're kind of on the periphery and you don't have materials on your table, you're going to want to scooch in, make room. I see a couple of empty tables, but also tables that have room. So as we get started, I'll let you move and move in and get to those tables. All right, we are really thrilled, honored, and just so excited to share this with you today. Stepping into AAC is a project that was funded and supported by the ASF, and we are so grateful and so humbled by the opportunity to be a part of this project, to bring resources to this community, but also the AAC community at large that is really designed to be for families, for parents, for caregivers of individuals who use AAC to learn about it, to become empowered in your role as a communication partner. And we're really just, this has been such an emotional journey for us because we have learned so much. We've made some fantastic connections, and we're just beyond thrilled to have this content out in the world for AAC learners and their communication partners. All right, where's the clicker? There we go. All right, so there's our pictures. We've kind of already introduced ourselves, so we'll keep going from there. And I am, let's see. Okay, so first we just really want to acknowledge that the content of Stepping into AAC is made richer by the contributions of this community. There are videos and photographs that were contributed. We also had some really phenomenal parents who stepped forward and allowed us to interview them about their journey with AAC. So we have their insights and their knowledge and their passion on display. We also had local vendors or vendors within the AAC community who contributed their communication board. So you have ready access to those. They're printable as part of the project and free. So these are some of our parent interviews. If you look around you, some of them are among us. And I cannot describe to you how rich a contribution this has made. I work in early intervention, and the families that I work with who are exploring these resources, when I meet with them every other week and ask, what really resonated with you, almost without exception, they refer to things that are said by parents related to the topics that we're exploring. So it's just fantastic. And then, of course, we have lots of images of our AAC learners that, with AAC in action. So these are just a couple of the snapshots that you'll find embedded in our resources. All right, I'm going to hand this over to Carol, and she is going to talk to you about, sorry, I need to go back a slide. I clicked too fast. It's a little more sensitive. I need to train my thumb. All right, Carol is going to talk to us about how this sort of came to be and what we set out to accomplish through stepping into AAC.
Thank you so much for allowing me to join today remotely and share the work of this incredible team. So in just a few minutes, Tabby and Rachel are going to walk you through the materials and give you a sense of what the Stepping into AAC journey will be like for those who choose to head down that path. But first, I'd like to just share with you the goals for this project. And really, we had 2 overarching priorities. The first was to create a set of materials that would help families know enough about AAC and how to support their child's use of it so that they can make it part of everyday life. And we know that some families have the benefit of either school or therapy teams that are very, very AAC knowledgeable and supportive of you guys. But there are also many situations in which families don't have that luxury. So we created these materials really so that families who are educating themselves about AAC, families that are very determined to learn as much as they can and maximize their children's communicative development, would be able to, move forward in AAC. And so, in doing this, we really wanted to engage families to learn about AAC support strategies by actually using those strategies. My day job is as a clinical educator and working with graduate students who are going to be speech language pathologists. This isn't a graduate course or a professional development seminar where somebody, is going to have a couple of hours, right, to really devote to learning about this and advancing their skills. So the way that, we sort of set this up is geared to learning by doing. So right from the first week, you'll be using AAC. If you already have access to robust AAC tools for your child, you can use those for sure. But if not, we'll guide you through selecting one of the options that we're sharing as paper-based communication boards. I know some people, want to get right into tech, and that's fine. But guess what? The magic ingredient in improved communication for these folks isn't in technology or tools, right? The magic ingredient is the frequent use of the support strategies. And these are strategies that can be implemented by educators and therapists, but also by parents and grandparents and little brothers and sisters and classmates. So you'll be using AAC right from the beginning. And because most families have very little time for learning about these support strategies and maybe even less energy to really delve into that, we worked really hard to make this as efficient and relevant as possible. So as you walk through this with Tabby and Rachel, you'll see a heavy emphasis on what these AAC concepts and strategies look like in daily life experiences. But we did design them so that if you want to share them with your team, and we certainly encourage you to do that, you certainly can. Now, a second goal that we had for this project set of materials was to empower families to be credible advocates for their children's AAC learning, right? We hear a lot from families like, oh, my team doesn't really take me seriously. So through the Stepping into AAC process, by the end of the 20 weeks, you'll have acquired the knowledge, the terminology, you'll have developed the skills and that are evidence-based, and you'll have built some habits in using AAC throughout the day. So you'll be able to both talk the talk, but also you'll be walking the walk. So we set out to create materials that would be truly supportive, and they're really designed for the most part, two groups of families. One is the family who is starting out AAC for the very first time, whether their child is 2 or 22, right? Our strong belief as a team is that every person with Angelman syndrome can be a more effective communicator, right? So that's one group. And then that second group is made up of those families who started down an AAC path at some point, but got away from it for one reason or another. Maybe they had inadequate support, or they just didn't have the energy or bandwidth to sustain, their AAC learning or their AAC practices. Maybe they had other things they need to prioritize, like dealing with seizures or sleep disorders, right? There's lots of valid reasons why AAC doesn't go as planned. So if that sounds familiar and you're looking to reboot your AAC efforts, there's a home for you in Stepping into AAC. You're our people. Just as a sidebar, let me also say that many teens and adults with Angelman syndrome were really not offered the opportunity to learn and use AAC in childhood. in early childhood. So for anybody wondering, it's never too late to step into AAC, right? If my 4 decades as a speech language pathologist and clinical educator have taught me anything, it's that really solid gains in communication and AAC learning can happen and do happen in the teenage and the adult years. So it's not about their age, it's about the quality of support that we give them, it's about the dosage of that support. And with the right supports in the adequate amounts, our older learners with Angelman syndromes make meaningful progress in language and communication. Next slide, Tabby. Thank you. So here's what you're going to be learning about for the duration of the session. 100 days of AAC learning, 100 days of AAC use spread across 20 weeks. And there are 3 types of materials you'll interact with each week, and you're going to learn about all of those today. So hands-on activities 5 days a week, short videos with information, explanations, excerpts from those parent interviews Tabby mentioned, AAC demonstrations, and print materials that include a weekly AAC newsletter, sample verbiage that you can use to connect with your child's team, templates for customizing AAC tools, and lots of handouts on some of the AAC support strategy and concepts that you'll be learning through this process. So each week, you're going to use that communication tool in different ways for different purposes. We'll start with a few carefully chosen words for you to put your hands on and use, and then we'll challenge you to add a couple more every week. And at the same time, you're going to be learning about AAC concepts and strategies. You'll see from the videos, they're really brief, right? Roughly 2 to 12 minutes. The print materials are short and engaging, right? They're not journal articles, right? We expect that some families will set aside decent chunks to learn about AAC through these materials, but most folks aren't going to be able to do that, right? Instead, they'll be fitting this in while they're in the school pickup line or waiting for a therapy appointment or sitting in the bleachers for their other kids' soccer practice, right? Things like that. So all of this can be viewed on your phone as well as on a standard laptop and computer. So without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Tabby and to Rachel to get us started looking at the different kinds of materials you'll be interacting with in the Stepping into AAC journey.
Right. Thank you, Carol. We're so glad you were able to join us today. So I just want to point out the handout that is on your table that looks like stepping stones sort of captures what's on the screen at the moment. Down the sidebar, you will see the 3 types of activities. There are action steps, signposts or videos, and then the travel log or the newsletter. And then your stepping stones guide you through kind of what you'll experience over the 20 weeks. It is a kind of a spiral path. So there's some built-in redundancy because that helps our learning. We like to hear things more than once. Just as our learners benefit from repetition, so do we. So you'll be able to follow along. Everything we do today is linked from that handout. So that's kind of there's 8 copies at each table. Everybody gets one. The other handouts will be shared as we go through. But I just want to show you, you don't have this exact representation of the overview, but you do have it in a slightly different format that reflects what we're going to do today. Okay, so we want to talk about Erin Sheldon and I did a pilot project at the very beginning of 2020, and several of you in the room were a part of that. And we were really gathering information about what do families need? What does it take to make AAC sustainable, doable, create that connectedness that we all value as a part of our AAC learning and using experience. And we landed through the course of that project on 5 things. So you see this interconnected 5-part Venn diagram. The first thing we identified was that knowledge is really important. We need to know the basics of language, communication, and AAC in order to move forward with it on our journey. So having those key understandings is a really important part of AAC learning, and often that's what we get. We come to these sessions and we learn about it. But that is not the whole story. It's hard to actually create action from a session where you're just gaining information. Technology is also needed. So in order to gain AAC skills, we have to have the stuff. We have to have the board. Even if you're starting with the core board, you have to have something to interact with to start to be able to understand about core vocabulary, about modeling, about communicative functions. You have to have a way to experience and explore in order to move forward in your knowledge and understanding. So part of in the very first week of stepping into AAC, you are invited to explore the communication boards that are provided by the vendors that have so graciously shared their resources with us. You don't necessarily have to make that long-term decision, but you need something to get started. So it gives you an opportunity to see it, touch it, feel it, explore it, see if it's going to work for you. Use it as a springboard for collaborating with your team about moving forward with getting access to the technology. You can't do it if you don't have it. So we have to make that happen. The next thing is skills. So skills is where your finger actually touches the tool, actually touches the screen, or the button if you're a scanner. But you build skills by doing. You don't build skills by learning, but by doing. So the action steps part of stepping into AAC is really set up so that each week you have 5 actionable things to do with AAC to get you immersed in that experience of touching it, feeling it, exploring it, and trying it. Next up, what we determined is that habits are really important. Now, to be fair, habits come and go. If you've ever been on a diet, you'll know that you might have a good habit for a little while and then you fall off. But having a habit helps us make our practices sustainable, consistent. It increases the effectiveness of the outcome. So we know that habits are important in order to move forward. So even if things kind of fall apart and fizzle out for a bit, you can always get back on board, but establishing habits becomes part of that. So we talk in the later part of stepping into AAC about how to incorporate AAC in daily routines, in leisure activities, and kind of throughout everyday life, because we want to give you those supports and strategies to build habits. The last thing that we sort of added on, we were kind of working with the 4 for a while and really recognizing the need to have well-balanced supports for families and for teams in general that target knowledge, technology, skills, and habits. But we've realized that community is also really important, and community is twofold. Community includes the community around your AAC learner. Who is their team? And beyond their team, siblings, cousins, grandparents, neighbors, family, friends, the people at the library that recognize and notice your child, right? Their favorite restaurant. Who's the community around your learner? But secondly, community amongst other AAC users. And you have that here with the ASF, and it's pretty freaking amazing. So we really, towards the end of this, we really focus on AAC in the community and building community, as well as sort of reflecting on how it is that you can share out AAC with others. So we found these things to be really important, and you will find that as we move through each week, again, that spiraling, we revisit topics over time with a different lens or a different focus so that you get that repetition, but you will see that we made really strong attempts in both the design and the content to visit each of these things in a variety of ways.
So this is kind of the summary we've gone through to give you the big picture. It's really designed to be 20 weeks or 100 days. So we won't get through all of that content here, but we want to give you a preview of what this journey looks like. So if you could go back one more. So this 20-week journey, I had another one on here. Never mind. It's broken into phases. In the first few weeks, we really seek to introduce, there we go, the foundational knowledge and concepts, including just, gosh, where do we even start? So if you would look around on your table and find there's a flow chart called Where Do I Start? This is available digitally. You can take a copy with you if it's available to you here, but we don't stay there. In week 6, we kind of take a pause from introducing vocabulary and knowledge, and we say, okay, but what if my student needs customize vocabulary. Everybody needs words that are more important to them individually. What if my child has differences in how they move their body, their finger dexterity, their vision, things like that? And so we take weeks 6, 7, and 8, and we think about those kind of customizations that you might encounter. And then starting in week 9 through the end of the series, we get back to talking about how can we practice and build those habits. We keep introducing more core vocabulary in bite-sized chunks all the way through different parts of life. So that's kind of a snapshot of the themes of how it goes. So week 1 through 5 gets you started. And right now we're going to look at that first week 1 activity. So when you first start, you'll find these 2 pages. On the table, it should be available front to back as a handout. On one side, it says, "Where do I start?" And on the back side, it has a list of the 40 words that we include throughout this journey. So each week, you'll be presented with 2 or 3 different core vocabulary words that we're just going to highlight. This explains the list of what's available, and these words are available on the different core vocabulary boards that we've included, again, with permission from the vendors, because there's a variety of programs you could choose from, and they all can be equally good tools. And I feel for your community, and then I've heard all these stories about how often you end up having 1 or 2 or 3 systems you've already had or tried, and someone else asks you to try something else. So we provided this tool as a way to kind of help you decide what might be best. So first you can say, do I already have a system? If you do, please use that. And feel free to use that today during our activities or when you go start this journey on your own. But if you don't, then we ask some things like, well, does your child have a school system that is using one certain system? And in that, we're kind of looking at what's the symbol or the AAC language of their community that's already in place. What's going to give them the best shot of seeing it used often and having a supportive community they'll be within. So if you follow that along, it'll kind of give you some guidance, but ultimately we offer 5 or 6, Tabby and Carol, different options of communication boards that are perfectly good options to start with. So we consider this kind of AAC program agnostic, where the principles we're talking about can be applied to any good, robust AAC system that's based in core vocabulary. And part of what we help walk through is like, well, what is robust? I have AAC, but it doesn't have any of these words. We talk about what core vocabulary is and why it should be included. So depending on how much information or knowledge you want to get into, you can use each week to kind of get little bite-sized chunks of practice information, or you can take a question like that and do a deeper dive through our materials. So after you get started, here's an example of what we call the action steps. So across the 20 weeks, there's 20 of these pages, and each of these action step pages have 5 simple activities, each taking 5 minutes or less, that you could complete within a week. So having small bite-sized activities, where this first one is, look at those list of words. Which words may be meaningful to you? Look at the board you've selected. If you look at each one of the days, the activities always start with an action word. Look, find, choose, point. Because this is the action. This is just us doing something and getting started. You're learning through doing and building positive habits. So after week 1, it's meant to be this low pressure activity. Here's another example. This one jumps ahead to week 6, and you'll notice this one is we're jumping all around. Week 6 is yellow. The background color is yellow. We've highlighted that different to say these stand out. Weeks 6, 7, and 8. Remember, we don't introduce core vocabulary there. That's where we talk about the customizations your child may need. So if your learner needs custom vocabulary, if they need to consider different access considerations for their vision or their motor abilities, weeks 6, 7, and 8, we talk about that. So that's where we take a step aside from practicing and introducing new core vocabulary, and we talk about those different features. And then in week 9, we go back to core vocabulary. So the activity we've chosen today. Tabby's driving, you guys. We're just all along for the ride. The activity we're going to do today, and the one that is printed out as an example on your table, is showing you what it looks like to customize a board. We know the power of core vocabulary. Core vocabulary are those flexible words that can be used for a whole variety of different purposes. And that's why speech language pathologists love them so much. So the word go can be used across lots of different settings for a lot of different purposes. But we also know there's power in those personal words. Where is it that my child loves to go? Where is it? What are the things my learner likes to talk about? So we provided some templates that allow you to brainstorm your family, including your learner, including the people closest to them. Like, gosh, what are the 5 people? Who are the 5 people we talk about most often? And you can use that as kind of your own brainstorm sheet to say, you know what, here's 5 people, here's 5 things, here's 5 feelings. And that gives you a place to start customizing your vocabulary to make sure it includes those things for your learner. Up here on the screen, you'll see included, there's one on your page, but this is all included online. There are QR codes for templates based on all of these different AAC systems. So if you say, I use Proloquo to Go, we know Proloquo to Go kind of has categories across the bottom. So we've made our template to help you work through customizing, kind of look a bit like Proloquo to Go. So if you want to take a moment, get a page in front of you. We only have 1 or 2 minutes, but we want you to start thinking about that. Even if you already have an AAC system, think about what that might include and think about who else you might ask. If your learner is there with you, let them chime in. Would grandma make your top 5, or is it going to be somebody else? We want this to really reflect their interests. So just one quick moment, if you make sure you have that template in front of you, and then we'll go on to part 2. Yeah. Okay. That's okay.
If you're looking at the master handout that kind of has those stepping stones, the 3rd QR code on the stepping stone takes you directly to the page that has all the QR codes with all the templates. So everything within Stepping into AAC is like linked and linked and linked again. From any part of it, you can get to you can zoom out to that week's resources or zoom in to a particular resource. So just know that there's a lot of interconnected linkedness throughout. So you're always kind of on your path to the next piece. I always find it a very sort of, I guess I would say a humbling task to choose the words for another person. So when we get to week 6 and we are tasked with making sure we're adding fringe vocabulary, it becomes this very thoughtful process. And on the templates, there's not a ton of space, so we have to do a little prioritizing. But I think it's a really nice exercise to think beyond, food and drinks, but to think and toys, but think about activities and think about people, think about places that are really important to your learner. Thinking about comments and the slang of their peers. What vocabulary are peers using that's going to be relevant? Because having things that are motivating to talk about is absolutely foundational to having meaningful communication experiences for you and for your learner. So, we really focus on core vocabulary to get you started because that is where you have that flexibility and broad applicability. But we don't wait too long before we dive into balancing out that core with fringe vocabulary that makes it rich and engaging. All right. Anybody have any fun words they want to share out that they were able to brainstorm? Expressions, comments, fun places? Don't be shy. It's a friendly group. School. Love school. Okay, we'll keep going. So the next section we want to introduce you to, and remember, this is what you'll get every week. The second piece that you get every week is a playlist. And the playlist has 2 to 5 videos in it. And each video is less than 12 minutes, some as short as 2 to 3. But these videos center around the topic that we've established at the, with action steps. So we sort of have a theme that's based around communicative functions each week, and the topics tie into that theme. So 30 of these videos have companion handouts, so it gives you a little bit more of a kind of a tangible pass it out resource to go along with it. And I just want to say that I can't express enough how much gratitude we have for the families that contributed, to the interviewees that made these resources so very rich. So we are going to take a walk through our videos. Our videos have a variety, they contain a variety of different formats. So I'm just gonna give you a brief preview of these different formats. First off, every video starts off with an introduction. So there's parallel structure in that. And we're only gonna watch the first 30 seconds of this. So hopefully the timing is set. Nope. All right. I don't know if you guys need to start the video just for the first 30 seconds. So you can see what an introduction looks like. So all of the videos are on, we have a YouTube channel, so you can go to Stepping Into AAC YouTube channel. Go ahead. I'm just filling in the space. Here we go.
Communicative functions 1.2.
Communicative functions are the reasons we communicate. Throughout the series, you will explore different communicative functions each week. You may hear the terms communicative purpose or communicative intent, but they all mean basically the same thing. The primary reasons that we communicate are to request, refuse, and
You can stop.
establish social closeness.
I think the original format we had these in, the time clips were set, but I don't think it translated. So every video starts off with an introduction that just introduces you to the topic and gives a brief summary. And then we move into some of the more visual content. So let's see, there we go. So this includes things like visual explainers. So this video we want to start, you can see at the bottom, 43 seconds to 1 minute and 13.
Shared attention, part
Drag
1.
it to 43.
2.1.
Shared or joint attention. As children grow, joint attention can take many forms. We observe it in a variety of different ways. For instance, looking. A child looks from a person to a toy. Pointing. A child points to the fire truck and vocalizes or looks at mom to notice that she's looking too. Sharing. Offering sister a hat to play dress-ups. Or waiting. Sitting patiently next to dad while he opens the book and finds the first page. You can stop it there. It's important to note that. Okay, so we have video explainers throughout trying to sort of demonstrate many of the concepts that we explore in Stepping Into AAC. We also have our lovely, phenomenal parent interviews. So this one starts at 3 minutes. I'll do that. So if you look, I'll say it in a minute.
Pointing to something, we will say it out loud to help kind of, oh, are you touching your nose? Is that your ear? And so we will validate what she's touching, even though she might just be exploring. That's how she's gonna learn it.
And if people respond to what you say, it becomes very powerful. Right?
Yeah.
So she's on the iPod and saying, sad, sad, sad. And we're all like, oh, you're sad. And she's like, happy, happy, happy. And we're like, oh, you're happy. I think she enjoys that part of it. And when new people come in the house, she'll just Mary Louise came in one time and she was whacking that thing. And Mary Louise is like, you are talking total nonsense. And Sophie laughed and laughed and laughed. And then she calmed down. But it was almost sort of like someone will listen. I know she'll listen. And so I'm just going to say, everything I can hit on this thing. It was like seeing a little kid get super excited.
Okay, you
When
can stop it there.
attributing
So what I love about that particular example is we're talking about attributing meaning, looking at what your learner's expressing through any modality and giving meaning to it. And the first parent talked about like really assigning meaning to the individual words as her daughter's exploring. And then Becky is like really talking about like the connectedness of attributing meaning, like how it creates that interaction so that her daughter wants to perpetuate this moment where she's connecting with others. So we can't capture that without these kinds of voices. So we are so grateful. All right. We also have, of course, people with Angelman featured in our videos. So this one, and all these contributions came from the community. We gave out postcards ad nauseum. It was all over for social media, and we got some amazing, amazing contributions. All right. This one starts at 1 minute 52 and goes to 2:12. As this comes up on the screen, you'll notice that in the very bottom corner of each of the videos, they are on YouTube, there's a code. It says V for video, and then it has a number, and that number corresponds to the week and then which video of that week. So this one says video 16:1.
Maya knows how
Means it is week 16.
quality care can bring out a smile. But it's been a few
152. Yeah, some of them have ads, some of them don't. We're not sure why. We're not making anything off of it, I promise.
And he's going in and out of it when we didn't expect him to. It's like, there's a talking device and he's doing it on his freedom device. We're not having to go in there. So
maybe a strap, harness, or handle helps with portability. It seems simple, but having AAC available is an imperative part of supporting AAC learners. Figuring out portability can be a game changer.
I know we got Play-Doh when we got home. Got a little shopping.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. We're going shopping.
Playground.
Oh, the playground. It might be a little too hot for the playground.
So we
All right, you
have
can stop it
gotten
there. Okay, so lots of just it just makes so much more sense. It's so much more tangible and so much more relatable when we get to see what it looks like for that AAC to be present in everyday life. Okay, and then each video ends with a summary. And so the summary is really meant to be very brief, but just to sort of capture it. One of the things that I think is so challenging about being the primary advocate for your learner and their AAC is having the verbiage to share with others and being able to say it in a way that's meaningful and concise and, is going to have that impact. So there's several ways throughout stepping into AAC. We've tried to give you some language to have those conversations. So the summary component of a lot of these videos is really meant to sum it up so that as you sort of carry that information forward, you're hearing what it can sound like to have that conversation and offer it to others. All right, so this one starts at 7:11.
In these instances, no learning is happening. Hand-over-hand support curates compliance and undermines our efforts to teach autonomous communication.
So many of the topics
Here we
that
go.
we have explored in Stepping into AAC so far come together as we map out what it looks like to scaffold opportunities for our learners to use AAC. Model, motivate, give pause time, have open expectations, and keep the conversation going. It really is the harmony of speaking and responding, and hopefully you're beginning to feel confident in your ability to be a responsive communication partner.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so then the last type of video that I want to highlight is we created some language walkthroughs. And my thumb does not like the click. There we go. Okay. So language walkthroughs, we really just put the board on the screen and we talk through an activity and you will see the hand model the AAC within that moment. We have language walkthroughs for daily routines such as mealtime and getting dressed, for leisure activities, building toys, creative activities and games and all, looking at books and all kinds of fun stuff, wet and messy activities, as well as things in the community such as shopping or being at an appointment and what that can look like. The structure of these is that we use just a simple core board, and we vary which language system we use, but just a simple core board for the beginning, what's sort of happening at the beginning of that activity. We use the core board plus a custom vocabulary so that you can see what it looks like to sort of flip it over and look at the those customizations and use them in tandem with one another. So the middle of the activity uses low text still, but the core plus the fringe, or core plus the custom. And then the last, when we're talking towards the end of what those activities look like, it uses the technology to the extent that it's available. So like with the wet and messy activities, you wouldn't actually have technology. So there's no technology for that one. That one's still paper-based. But all the others, they have the technology, like what it looks like. You'll see the app, cast on the screen. So we just think it's so important to be able to see it. You become a better partner when you can see it. So we really, really wanted to create opportunities for you to see it, maybe follow along. Lots of kids with Angelman love watching videos, so they would probably really enjoy these ones too. You can show that AAC in action. And as you go through the walkthroughs, one thing to kind of note and pay attention to is that a variety of communicative functions are represented. Really deliberate about making sure that there was a lot of representation of different things to say and ways to say it. All right, so we're going to show you kind of like the beginning and end segments of a language walkthrough. So this one starts at 1:16.
Halftime.
Middle.
During these outdoor active activities, your customized vocabulary will come in handy because there are likely many opportunities to use more expressive comments. The swings are your favorite. So fun, or wow, good catch. You may also wonder aloud, will he get the ball? Or I wonder if the slide is hot. Here I'm using think because the icon fits both in meaning and visually. You may also redirect your learner to a different activity. For instance, let's go see the ducks, or I want to walk around. Taking pictures during the fun gives you the opportunity to talk about it later.
End.
Now we are going to walk through what it looks like to use the Proloquo To Go app's 77 button grid when getting ready to leave the park or playground. When it comes time to go, you will be packing up your things. Logistically, you may be recruiting the help of your AAC learner and others. You might say, we need to put all our things in our bag. Or maybe you're asking, can you get your hat and your water bottle? You are probably also talking about the highlights. You might say, you were on the swings for a long time. Or you might talk about the game. You might say, your cousin played really hard. His team is so good. The benefit of modeling during outdoor active time at the park.
So just a snapshot of what you will see in there. So what on your table, you will see a piece of paper. It's printed front and back, and it has big blocks on it. Down the side, there's each block, one represents daily activities, the other is leisure activities, and on the back, I think we have in the community. So again, we don't have a ton of time today, but we want to really give you that opportunity and experience to start thinking about what AAC in a language walkthrough looks like, learning by doing. So just pick one block, and we've listed some activities. You can, of course, add your own. And think, if you were planning, pre-planning, makes a difference. It doesn't have to be elaborate or complicated. It can just be in your head. But for this purpose of this activity, we're going to just take a moment and write down 2 or 3 things that you might say during that activity. Chat amongst yourselves, kind of bounce things off one another. Looks like we have a question over in the corner. Active participation. All right. I think I actually have a slide for this. If I can get my buttons to work. There we go. So this is what, oops. There we go. And you're welcome to take this with you and use it as a jumping off place for your own sort of pre-planning or pre-thinking. Especially, think about what's an opportunity when I can use AAC? Let me think through this. And maybe for the next week, you engage with your AAC learner in that opportunity or that routine or that activity. And then next week you add another one. So, when we think about building habits, sometimes it's just about starting small with one thing that feels meaningful and doable, and then adding to it, and then adding more as we go through. Okay. Also, this handout is QR code and short URL linked on your Stepping Stones handout if you want to print and do more with it. All right. Anybody have have something they want to share? An activity that with their learner, with thinking through some of the vocabulary? She is eager to share. Tell us what you got. All right. I know it's the end of the day, so we'll move on. Okay. So this is just an example of the handouts that go with some of the videos. And so the main thing I want to point out about this handout, and these are actually, of course it has the title, but the next thing you're going to see right under the title is a summary concept of the concept that is being described. And the reason that I want to point this out is because, again, this is an opportunity where we've provided a concise summary of this topic so that you have the verbiage to share it with others, to have that exchange of information, to depart your knowledge and advocacy. And then, of course, the rest of the handout, provides visuals and key ideas are organized. And then down at the bottom, we have your video link that goes with it. But just know that summary of content statement is really there to make your advocacy easy.
Perfect. So Tabby just summarized the second type of materials that you find in Stepping to AAC. First, we have the action steps, which are those quick, doable activities, 5 things per week. Second, we have a whole series of videos, and you got to see some nice sampling of that. We have one more piece, and that is something we call the travel log. And on your journey of stepping into AAC, this highlights a bit of a newsletter that digs a little bit deeper into some topics where we include things like a question of the week. Sometimes we have questions like, well, why are we using symbols? Why aren't we using photographs for everything? Because we've worked with a whole lot of families and a whole lot of school teams, and we know some of these common questions. And again, Tabby and Aaron together did that first pilot project with the ASF community, and we've collected some of those questions from there as well. We know that you may be having some of those questions, or you may be facing some of those questions from your school. So this is a bit of a deeper dive. They're pretty short, but they're readable, and they're meant to empower you to have some more information, again, to take to your school team or to help direct your own decision-making in your learner's journey. So there's 20 newsletters, 1 per week. Each one has a question of the week and 2 brief articles. And then there's some additional resources linked at the back. We know sometimes you find a particular thing, whatever that question is, or whatever that topic is, and maybe it's been a sticking point for you and your team, or between you and your school team. And so there's some resources in the back to say, you know what, if you want even more information on this, our teammate Carol, who we lost from the screen, but Carol has curated gobs of information. And in that information, she has pulled out the relevant pieces that tie to the questions we've asked and the information shared. So the travelogues are designed to be conversational tone. So they're meant to be readable and kind of reachable for everyone, we try not to use any like highly technical language, but really authentically represent the questions and the steps you may be taking in your journey. You will also see, and you've heard Tabby mention this too, we have some planned redundancy. So maybe in I don't remember, I'm sorry, but week 3, we talk about wait time and giving your learners some more time to think. You might hear about that in week 3 and hear about it again in week 7 and read about it in the newsletter. That's on purpose to keep reminding you and the rest of your team that these are themes you'll see throughout, and those are important parts of the journey. Here's an example of some of the pieces that may be tied within the newsletter. So the first example on the left shows little snapshots of your different choices of AAC systems that you may have encountered on your learner's journey. And those are all versions that you can just click and print from the program, the whole series, the Stepping into AAC series. The middle one is that chart we already went through. Where do I start? So we provide it to you at the beginning of the program, but if you are printing out this newsletter and sharing it with school, we put that chart in with the newsletter as well. And then finally, the acknowledgement and links, we make sure we include any of the families because again, there are some family quotes included in here from our interviews. And we make sure we acknowledge those folks. And then there's QR codes and links to those other resources if it's a topic you want to dive deeper into. What I do? So there are a few examples out on your tables if you want to take a look. There are some topics listed here on the screen that are examples of things we address in the articles you'll find in the Travelog newsletters. Things like, what do I do after requesting? We're kind of stuck at requesting. How do we move beyond that? How do we, what's my goal? What does successful AAC or successful communication look like? One of them includes what we call the Communication Bill of Rights, and that works as a tool that really lists and advocates for what we believe every individual and every learner in our community should have access to communication and making decisions about their own life. So there's lots of tools included. Can we go to the next one? Yeah.
So what on your table, there are this one has the colored header. If you look, there's a front and a back, and the front is going to ask you to just consider for a moment. We're going to invite you to peruse these topics and just spend a moment reflecting on which ones resonate with you, which ones do you think are really relevant that you'd like to share with your team, what are you excited to learn more about? And you can, I think sometimes differentiating between what do I need as my child's primary communication partner and what does their team need that I need to advocate for might be the same, might be different. So you might circle some and underline others. So those are the sort of the brief articles. You remember 2 brief articles per newsletter. These are the topics. This is a sampling of the topics that are shared. So just take a moment to review that list. And in a minute, we're going to turn it over and we're going to look at those questions. And we would actually really love if you would share like which topics resonate with you. I think it's so good to kind of put that out there for others to see, you know, what, see if there's themes or sort of those shared passions.
Fill it out.
Team accountability. Ooh, that's a good one, right? And building a effective AAC team. Yes, those are 2 really important topics. Those are Carol. Yes, Dr. Zingari. Those are 2 of her favorites. Any others? Anything else that resonates? Yeah. AAC and physical challenges. Oh, visual. Sorry. Visual challenges. Yeah, we were lucky to have some conversation about things like cortical visual impairment and some research that's going on here. But I know within your community, there is a lot of conversation about how to best support when we're not confident in how strong visual skills are. So yeah,
And I think along with that is attention. So like when we address those access issues, we look at motor, we look at vision, and we look at attention, because attention is an access issue if you think about it. And vision and attention go hand in hand in pretty important ways. So those are some good ones.
And that's Tabby's baby. Talk to Tabby about attention and the role it plays. Core vocabulary. So she said the topic of core vocabulary, because some systems like POD are not necessarily organized as a front page of core vocabulary per se. We consider that topic, that yellow to the side, robust language in AAC, because even though POD is organized pragmatically, we would argue that's still a robust language system, because you can find most core vocabulary throughout even the basic book. But you're right, it's organized with a different lens. So any others? Beyond good intention? Yeah. Yeah.
That's probably on the sheet.
Yeah. Yeah, and we really hope you find some topics that jump out there and you hope to explore further. The next slide, we talk about the questions that we answer. So there's a focus question that we have heard a lot within this community and among AAC users and AAC teams. So here's a sampling of them here. If you flip over your paper, there's a list of them there, and you can kind of go through and say, oh, yep, I've said that one before, or I've talked to my team about that before. Some examples. I'm going to pass the mic to Tabby for this one. My child has a short attention span. How will they learn to use AAC? Attention, it's
a thing. So yeah, take a moment to peruse those topics. And again, shout out like what's really resonating with you. What are the questions that you have, or that you are like, oh my goodness, I need to share this with my team, or maybe with grandparents, or some of the families of the neighborhood kids that are kind of playing in the front yard. Oh, can you say it a little louder? Yeah. Okay, so how's my child going to be ready ready for abstract representation? So, moving into the idea that kids learn when they are exposed in meaningful ways. So they learn those abstract representations through use, through meaningful interactions. Any others jump out? Okay, well, this is week 7. I'll just share that. Yeah, so what's that? Oh, am I hearing my own echo? I think, I don't know if I can summarize my take on attention, but I just think attention is really nuanced, and it is going to change with a child's level of alertness. So if you have a kiddo that, is sort of lethargic, we need to amp up their attention. And some kids are way up here and we need to bring down their attention. So attending to alertness can be the first step in addressing attention. So we need to have them at that level of alertness that's conducive to learning. I think also, learners do not always attend in ways that look like attention. Like a lot of our learners cannot listen and look at the same time. So you might be modeling AAC and they look away, and they are listening to what you're saying, but they're not looking. But then they'll look if you keep quiet. I think too, there's different ways that we can use AAC systems. There's customizations that make things jump out a little bit. You can change contrast. So some of the strategies that we use for visual attention or vision also support attention. Like I like to make my backgrounds dark because I can see it better, and I'm more able to attend rather than like a satiated white field. So some of those strategies. So like I said, I could go on, but that's a snapshot. All right. Any other questions that jump out? Sure. Absolutely. I don't know if you guys heard that, but I see growth in my child, but others do not treat them like they can communicate. So just kind of thinking through like how can we have this conversation about what a child is capable of? Okay. Okay, so we are pretty well out of time, so I'm just going to move through this fairly quickly, but just know that there are companion handouts that address a variety of topics. There are foundational concepts, there's key knowledge and strategies, there's implementation strategies, there's vocabulary and message focus, there's practical approaches, everyday experiences, empowerment, and on and on. There's also some infographics.
Okay, friends, as we wrap up, Tabby and myself and Carol, who joined us from out of state, we really want you to know how long we spent working on this, and with you as a community in mind. We really, really, really want to come alongside you and help you advocate. And since we cannot clone ourselves and be everywhere, we really wanted to build resources that would equip and empower you. And so please know, with all of these videos and all of these handouts, we poured a lot of time and care into them. And one of the resources you'll find in this Stepping into AAC kit is letter templates. So if you're at a place where you're maybe at an uneven, not on the same page as your school team, you could let them know. And we've written some sample text. You're welcome to copy it, paste it, customize it to yourself. Maybe it doesn't totally mean, or maybe you want to use the whole thing and just write, "Dear school team, I'm about to start this 20-week journey called Stepping into AAC. It's based on this. It's provided and developed by this team of people. We want to come alongside you if we can, even if that's virtually and asynchronously. But please use these resources. If you find yourself, you find a resource or newsletter you really want to share with people, there's another template for that to say, you know what, print this out, staple it to it, and send it off to school. We really wanted to help. We just know sometimes families are not given the voice that they deserve. And we see you, we hear you, and we wish we could come and join you in all those conversations. We are working our best to help our colleagues as SLPs understand that your kids and your learners all have incredible potential, and we want them to have every opportunity they can. While we work on growing the knowledge in our own community, we want you all to feel equipped and empowered to take these resources. And so that's what these letters are for, to help you do that.
Okay. So the weekly bundles, in each, as you navigate each week, one thing that you will find in addition to the action steps, the newsletter, and the playlist link is the weekly bundle. And this is just a printable packet. So it starts with this, it has a table of contents on top that of course has QR codes that link to everything and shortened URLs. I'm telling you, everything links around. But the packet includes all the printables. So it includes the action steps. It includes handouts with whatever videos are that week. It includes the newsletter. So you kind of get everything in a package. And maybe that's what you want to send to school, or share, with family or whatever. I just want to kind of put this plug in. I am a huge advocate for this in an IEP. Under supplemental aids and services, ongoing AAC support for school staff. That word ongoing is key, because that word makes it so that it's not a one and done. It's not a checkbox, but it provides support on an ongoing basis. These packets, these resources can help to equip teams to provide that to their staff in pretty flexible ways. Low demand, high impact over time.
And one last thing, as we get ready to go, you'll see there's some stickers on your table. Please feel free to take those with you, and you could take them all. Place them either on your computer or iPad case or somewhere memorable to you, because as you embark on this journey, we know it is a real process of setting new habits for yourself. So if you put it somewhere, either tuck it somewhere or stick it somewhere where it might visually cue you to be like, I'm going to print off week 2 and get going on that. We encourage you to do that. So please take those resources. They're designed for you, and we hope they're a benefit. One more QR code goes to everything. You can find these materials at least week 1 through 12 are totally live on the ASF website. It's equally hosted at Practical AAC, Carol's and Gary's website, where she has all 20 weeks up already. But once you get in, as Tabby mentioned, each link links to another. Each week links to another. And once you figure out the system of our codes, you can jump around and find all those materials. We really hope this is a gift to you all, and thank you for coming today.
And thank you so much. One other place that you'll find the links is in every single YouTube video. All the week's content for all the week's content of the week that video belongs to is also linked. So I'm telling you, it's everywhere. Thank you guys so much. We are really honored to be here, and go forth and speak AAC.